What impact did Mark Cuban have on actually making that happen? How does he help really explode your business?
So really what it came down to is they have a phenomenal network. And there are no short of moments where I would, send Mark an email and say, hey, this is the thing that we're looking to do. And the next email I get back is, there's four people on the thread and he's saying, hey, connect him with this person and do this thing, right? And so that's really cool to have someone in your corner that gives you that comes for that delivery.
Do you think there's something that you did to really stand out? Was it just your natural eloquent presence? Was it the way that you laid out the numbers, the business plan? How did you stand out?
Well, they do, but I think it comes down to just being unique and having something that has value.
Welcome to Mark Savant Media. On this channel, you're going to learn tips, tools, and tactics to take your side hustle full-time. If that sounds interesting, make sure to smash subscribe. All right, today we are joined by founder of Spare, an innovative way for the unbanked or underbanked to get access to cash right on your phone. He is a Shark Tank alumni, and if you are interested in getting the behind-the-scenes pass to what it's like going and pitching and getting a $500,000 deal on Shark Tank, you're in the right place. Hughes, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Ontra, it's my pleasure. You were so impressive on Shark Tank. Really excited to chat with you today. So I want to start. I want to go back in time to the foundation of Spare, of your company Spare. Just give me a quick overview. What is Spare and how did you come up with that idea?
Yeah, absolutely. So, back in 2015, actually a little bit earlier than that, but we'll call it 2015. I had a background in financial services. I came out of JP Morgan. And one of the things that I learned in the traditional financial sector was that often the market wasn't built for people that didn't have a bank account or that were on the low end of the economic totem pole.
Mm.
And so, now you hear this thing inside of fintech of banking the unbanked or underbanked. But at that time, we were doing something that not a whole lot of people saw a lot of value in. And we were looking at a problem where the group that we're solving an issue for, they visit an ATM 7 times per month, roughly about $60 per transaction. And the fee associated with that is roughly about $4.69 per transaction. And so when you talk about on the low end of the spectrum, $4.69, that's can make the difference between eating and not eating dinner for some of these folks. And so for us, it was more of a mission of creating a financial services platform that had a multitude of tools that were designed to connect these individuals not only to the community, but to better banking services.
Yeah. Well, so one of the things I think you brought up that's really interesting to me, Deontra, is a lot of people didn't see or understand the value. And that's something that came up on the episode of Shark Tank. I know that Kevin and Barbara were giving you a ton of pushback. I'm assuming as the founder of this new innovative idea, you got a lot of negative feedback on the way. How did you overcome that and really get the push to make Spare a real thing?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very interesting because most of my pitches in the earlier days made me seem quite contrarian, right? You walk in and people are pitching, digital wallets or cryptocurrencies or something to that effect. And here's this guy saying, "Hey, we've got a fortified network so consumers can access cash inside of our networks of merchants." And so you're getting individuals with black cards that don't actually ever carry cash, and anytime they come in contact with a person who needs cash, it's usually the valet. And so they're like, yeah, we don't see the need for this. And so they weren't necessarily understanding the whims and woes of a demographic that actually had real solvable problems, but it was an investment that they should be making. And now I don't want to confuse anyone and say that this is all altruistic. This is a financial services company and we make money. But what our objective was to create an ecosystem in which we could reduce and in some cases eliminate the cost of moving cash inside of a community. But yeah, I had no short of the individual saying, cash is going away, cash is not king. And so, how are you really truly going to build and scale this model? And I can tell you today, we're doing pretty well.
Yeah, well, it certainly sounds like, and I definitely want to get into the nuts and bolts of the success that you're having. And of course, we're talking to DeAndre Hughes from gotspare.com. But I still want to go back in time a little bit because something that a lot of after hours entrepreneurs struggle with is taking that leap, taking that jump. You've got an idea, we've got this vision, but we're having a hard time actually taking it full time, manifesting that vision into an actual business. In your case, what do you think is best? Do you think it's better to jump out of the airplane and build your parachute on the way down? Or do you think that it's better to slowly segue into your vision and business?
So that is a really good question. Primarily because when you go out and create something, you have this vision for it, and oftentimes we think we have to know day one what it's going to look like in the final product. And the one thing that I learned is your customers need to have input. So when you have a prototype or that baseline concept, get it out there into the market because there might be some assumptions or assertions that you may be missing from your vantage point that someone on the other side of the aisle can say, hey, look, this thing that you're doing, if you tweak it in this tiny manner, you might get a lot more exposure. And it's very interesting because even though we've been this far along in our evolution, that happened to us just recently. So we're 5 years in, and part of our platform has the messaging behind it has modified, right? And now the message is stickier, right? And so the best thing is get it out there, get it in as many hands as you can, take the lead, don't worry about perfection. With software, if you can always update things. Think about this. Apple today can still send out a massive update that will break your phone, or cause issues, but yet you will still use it, right? And all they have to do is create a new couple lines of code, upload that, and you're good to go. So there are always going to be mistakes inside of software if you're building that type of company, that you can overcome. In addition to that, whether it's software or hardware, just put it out there,
Mm.
right? The people, the community, the feedback is incredibly valuable, not just for your product, but for you as the entrepreneur.
Yeah, ignore your community at your own peril. And more to your point,
Absolutely.
more to your point, Deontra, you've seen both YouTube and Google over the past month. I guess they're one and the same. Have gone down for at minimum 30
Yeah,
minutes of time. So
sure.
you gotta be ready to pivot and grow and listen to your customer base. I'm definitely with you there. Another thing that I thought that was really interesting and very compelling about your story, Deontra, as you were building gotspare.com, you were bootstrapping it. You're the definition of a bootstrapper, right? You're sleeping on couches trying to get this thing off the ground. Do you think that's an advantage to have that underdog mentality, or do you think it's a disadvantage?
Oh goodness. So not having been on the other side of the spectrum, right? I didn't walk into a circumstance in which someone wrote me a big check and said, "Hey, I love just the idea that you have, and we're just going to back you as the human being." We actually had to fight for it and scrounge for it.
Mm.
I think there's a certain level of appreciation that you have, because every customer counts. Like even today, I still do our hiring. Even today, I still deal with the majority of our top line merchants. Now, granted, we've got over 80,000 merchants in our network, but those that are performing rather well, they have a direct line to me. And so I don't know if that would necessarily be the case if I had just been given that silver spoon, right? I think part of that coming up, everyone mattered, and I think that was the most humbling part of my journey was, in order for us to get to where we are today, every person who needed an ATM request, or a merchant that was willing to entertain our technology, they mattered to our success today.
I think that's really important. I mean, for me, it seems like if you're starting with nothing, you have more appreciation for the things that you gain over time. Whereas the flip side is it could be easier to be more flippant about losses. I mean, if you've been sleeping on couches, you have this appreciation for every dollar and every customer, every client. So something you brought up, Deontra, that I think is really important and probably a massive challenge for a company like Got Spare. And just to kind of break down this business model a little bit, you have to educate both the vendors and the consumer to its existence, right? Because me as a consumer, I'm going to walk into a local gas station or quick shop, let's say, and I say, hey, I've got spare. I'm going to scan it on the piece of hardware that you have installed, and I'm going to
Mhm.
get cash back. Correct? That's the way that it works.
Correct. Yeah.
How do you go
So
about educating both the merchants and the consumer and getting them both to buy in? That seems impossible.
Yeah, so when we first started Spare, the idea of a two-sided marketplace was it seemed like it was an easy idea, right? Like we've got something that this person wants and we can connect you with this other person. But it's incredibly difficult. If I could go back and do it again, I would not be building a two-sided marketplace. But it's really truly about finding that balance between how you can really truly connect each party and actually solve a problem for both of them at the same time.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And how did you get the word out there? Because you don't have, millions and millions of dollars for these huge ad campaigns. How did you actually
Yeah.
get people to buy into it?
Yeah, so the first 52 merchants inside of Spares Network were all the ground game, right? And we went in and we said, hey, look, this is the thing that we're building, and we're a startup, and and when you're going to small businesses, they get it, right? You get a lot of leeway, and so like, hey, we're testing this thing out. It's really great for the community. If we send somebody in here, could you just dispense cash to them? We'll make sure you get the money back in X period of time. So we have 52 merchants that we are greatly appreciative of, but it was once that kind of took the risk on us, which I appreciate that still to this day. And then it was once we had those merchants on board, then we could drive that foot traffic, and then it was about with the other merchants. It was like, look, there are other people that are doing this that are already in your shoes. So it was really that word of mouth effect
Mm.
that I think that's really what excelled us to get to a point where we could be on Shark Tank. But it was really about coming back to Spare's root of creating a community-based cash network at the end of the day. And again, that's community. You've got to get into the community in order to have, in order for us to build what we built.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense because that's what you're really relying on is that testimonial factor, that word of mouth factor. This vendor likes it. He's getting more foot traffic, so you can kind of leverage that to get other people to buy in. And to me, it definitely sounds like a lot of crawl, walk, run, which is something I
Mhm.
think a lot of business owners can fall into these traps of. Okay, I just want to make as much money as quickly as possible, but then you don't have the infrastructure, you don't have the systems, you maybe don't have the team in place to support that. So I want to lean into this a little bit more, right? So you've started to prove out the concept. The vendors like it, your consumers like it. You're like, okay, we've got something here. At one point, did you decide, you know what? I'm going to go pitch on Shark Tank with some of the most prolific investors of our era. At what point did you decide, okay, now it's time to go ahead and pitch on Shark Tank?
Well, because we're here in Los Angeles, you see those casting calls come up, and it's actually really interesting because the first casting call that I went to was in 2017, I believe, so 2018, and they had just, at that point we had just released the product and stuff like that. We were super early stage, and so I went in. They said, okay, well, you guys are a little too early. Might not be something that the investors would be into, so we'll pass on you. What was actually really interesting was the show came back and said, hey, we just want to do an update, see where you're at. And we had enough movement to where they're like, look, we'd like to put you on the show. We think this might be something that's interesting. And so I'm super appreciative for the fact that they came back, because even if we had gone the first time around, I wasn't ready for that. The company wasn't ready for that. We weren't ready for it when we actually got on the show. And so but that's really what it came about. I'm not shy getting in front of an audience and telling people what I think about the services that we have, and about the where financial services are going in general. So to me, it was kind of a no brainer. But that was for us to get the green light on that. That was great.
Yeah, well, look, you certainly miss out on 100% of the opportunities that you don't take. So props to you for actually taking that leap and going for it. Because I think as business owners, as after hours entrepreneurs, we never feel like we're ready. We're like, okay, well, as soon as this happens, then I'll take that leap. But
Mhm.
the reality is, if you don't hit record, if you don't start trying now, it's never going to happen. So just start.
Yeah.
So you also mentioned that you went on, they denied you, they declined you. Do you think there's something that you did to really stand out? Was it just your natural eloquent presence? Was it the way that you laid out the numbers, the business plan? How did you stand out? Because that seems like nearly impossible. They take so many pitches.
Well, they do, but I think it comes down to just being unique and having something that has value. You had mentioned something earlier about entrepreneurs that are like, look, I want to go out and make as much money as possible. That's all well and good, and investors like the idea of money. It's a business at the end of the day. But one of the things that we've done is we've been able to combine, really, it's profit with a purpose, right? We're solving a real problem in the infrastructure of financial services. And so the only way for us to really truly get the accolades or get the support that we have is it was really about creating something that was meaningful at the end of the day.
Love that. Love that. It's definitely, it seems obvious on paper, but it is a unique idea and something I think that a lot of people probably don't think about unless you're in that target demographic or psychographic. So that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
So I just want to remind everyone we're talking here to DeAndre Hughes. He's the founder of Spare. You can find out more at gotspare.com. You can use code after hours for $10 off. That's after hours for a free $10. I'll have a link below for all of you after hours entrepreneurs who want to check it out. All right. Hey, Mark here. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Let YouTube know you're enjoying this video. Let me know you're enjoying this video. All right, let's get back into this episode. So Deontra, you've gotten the call back. You're ready to go on Shark Tank. What happens next? Are you just showing up there the next day with your business plan? Are you studying for hours and hours and days getting ready? What did you do next once you heard that you're going to get a chance to go on the show?
So it's really interesting is I'm an oddball when it comes to pressure. So I work well a lot better under pressure than most people. So I don't get the anxieties and things like that. And I'm not a script reader, right? So, I'm sitting inside the trailer and they're like, yeah, practice your pitch and things like that. And I'm in the trailer messing up my pitch, right? And I'm like, this is going to go horribly. And so, but they take you out of the trailer and they put you, in the background area, and you hear all the other people giving their pitches, and then they kind of, they mic you up and they walk you out and they say, this is the carpet you're going to stand on. You're going to hear 1, 2, 3. We're going to open a thing. You start walking, and I wasn't sure that I was going to do well until they opened those curtains, and it was just like I was completely calm, and it was delivery, right? And so it might just come back to, sure, there was probably a whole lot of practice so that when I did actually get there, I was able to seamlessly deliver it, because really it was one shot, right? You get one take, and they cut, they cut and edit. And so it was more about me just being confident that I knew my company, I knew what we were doing, and I knew our mission.
Well, you
And
know your
so,
numbers too, which is a common
yeah,
mistake, right? You know your numbers. That's what Kevin always says. I'm kind of
yes,
curious, how long was your pitch? Because they condense it down to like a 10-minute segment. How long was the actual pitch itself?
yeah, I think it's like I was told it was somewhere close to about 40 some odd minutes. So we were in there quite a bit of time, but it was a lot of conversation back and forth.
Well, there's a lot of almost like a battle, right? Because as you're giving your pitch, you're answering all these questions. It's kind of a unique type of business in itself. So you have to kind of explain it. I'm sure, and I recall the Sharks being like, well, how do you get vendors to sign up? How do you get consumers to sign up? Because as we mentioned before, that's probably the biggest
Mhm.
challenge that you have in this particular type of
Right.
model. What are your thoughts as Robert and Barbara and all the Sharks start to drop out? What are you thinking? Are you like, oh crap, it's back to the drawing board? What were you thinking?
Well, at that point, we had heard, or I had heard no enough, to where it was like, well, I'm not going to lose anything, right? And I think that's one of the big fears, is you put yourself in that particular space, and your fear is that because these 5 people here said no, or 4 or 5 people here said no, somehow that's an indicator of how bad we're doing, right? Or that we're not in the right space. But it's very interesting because after that show, and even still to today, you know, we're getting people that are saying yes to us, and these yeses are growing our network phenomenally. We actually have gotten to the stage where businesses are importing our technology into their digital wallet, because the service that we're providing saves them 25 to $35,000 of getting a card program. And so they're like, look, this network has value to our users because they want a debit card. And so if we could use this instead and give them access to cash inside your network, we'll pay you for it. And so we're like, yes, we'll take all the money. So, but it's caused us to evolve a little bit. So, yeah, you're going to get no's. And I think it's really about having just a tougher skin at the end of the day. Um, take the feedback as it comes. Make sure you constantly educate yourself about the market that you're in. But if you're getting no's, and if you can see something that people really truly aren't paying attention to, it's okay to be headstrong about it. The amount of people, advisors, that have looked at me and said, hey, look, you're doing this the wrong way, or this isn't the market, there's something that's easier, or there's something that's trendier, like why don't you guys create your own cryptocurrency, things of that nature. um those are all good, for great flashbangs. But if you're trying to cement something, if you believe that your vision is integral to a problem that you're solving on a root level, stay down that path.
Yeah, this is something that I think about a lot, right? Because when you're starting something new and you've got this vision, it's oftentimes very difficult to know that you're on the right path because all these people are saying no or they don't understand it. And that's a really challenging thing. And quite frankly, if you're not getting a lot of no's, you're probably not surrounding yourself with the right people because in my experience, it takes about 9 no's to get to that one yes. And one of the big yeses that you got on Shark Tank was from Mark Cuban, who, correct me if I'm wrong, committed $500,000 to Got Spare. Is that am I missing something here? Is that right?
Yeah, so that's definitely what you guys saw. Things played out a little bit differently after the show, but Mark is still an advisor for the company. As everyone knows, I went in and I was asking for that 14 mil valuation. And so what I wanted to do was make sure that, our prior investors weren't taking any down rounds. And I wanted to push to ensure that we were creating as much value for our investors. And so, stay tuned on how exactly that's going to play out. It's actually really exciting coming in the next 6 months or so. So that tale or that saga has not dissolved yet.
So, I mean, can you give us any spoilers or any expansions, anything that's happening? I'm curious now. You got my juices flowing.
Yeah, well, all I can say is, some of the partnerships that we've garnered over the past few months will actually grow the network by north of over 300,000 new locations.
Wow.
And really, our mission was to go out and create a network where our users could actually access cash for free. Over the past couple of years, because we're a startup, we had to cover our costs, and so generally our customers would get charged anywhere between 1 to 3% on a transaction. Well, those 300,000 locations will actually be free locations, and so that's something that we're really excited about as we go into the next year.
I mean, that's crazy exciting. Right now, you had mentioned that you're around 80,000 merchants, so you're almost quadrupling the locations that people can actually get Got Spare. So listen, everyone, we're talking to DeAndre Hughes. Don't forget that name, and make sure you go to gotspare.com. Keyword after hours for a few bucks off. So I want to lean in a little bit more into this, Deantra. Your network is starting to explode, and that's something that you're looking to roll out here in the coming months. What impact did Mark Cuban have on actually making that happen? I would imagine that partnering up with a billionaire like Mark Cuban would have an impact. How does he help really explode your business?
So really, what it came down to is they have a phenomenal network, and there were no short of moments where I would send Mark an email and say, hey, this is the thing that we're looking to do, and the next email I get back is there's 4 people on the thread, and he said, hey, connect him with this person, and do this thing, right? And so that's really cool to have someone in your corner that gives you that comes for that delivery at the end of the day, and so really it's network that was the most important.
Yeah, it's not really your net worth, it's your network. And quite frankly, that's one of the reasons I'm very passionate about doing a project like this. Video podcasting is huge because you get to meet amazing people like yourself on a regular basis. And it's been really, really, really cool. So as you're starting to explode your business here, you're getting into a lot more locations, you're teaming up with people like Mark. What's the biggest challenge? Because I would assume like at this point, you've probably overcome thousands of enormously ominous types of challenges, right? What's your biggest challenge now in trying to grow the business to the next level?
So our biggest challenge today in the world of COVID has simply been shutdowns, right?
Mhm.
And so you've got a lot of small businesses out there that are hurting. And that's really truly the backbone of Spare's economy, of this community that we've built, are these small businesses. And so when they don't have the support that they need to, keep the doors open, it makes it really difficult for us to provide the service that we have. It was very, very interesting because at the beginning of the pandemic, I was driving around and I saw a line outside of out of an ATM for a popular bank, and it was very interesting because I had just gotten off the phone with an investor. Said, "Hey, we don't know about what's going on and this and that, and we're not quite sure if this is the market for us." But then I look outside my window, and there's this massive line of people,
Mm.
and then not too far down the road, there's a check cashing place with again a massive line of people, and I'm sitting here thinking, there's a huge disconnect, right? And so our biggest issue was taking what was happening in the mainstream media or in the mainstream financial services sector, where everyone's focused on digital wallets and cryptocurrencies, things and that nature, and getting them to take a look at what it is that's happening over here, because these people are hurting in the economy.
Yeah.
And that's not just the consumer side, that's these small businesses. And so our biggest challenge to date has been supporting the small businesses that are in our community. So the one thing that I would say to everyone out there, this pandemic has not just hurt us nationally, it's also been global. And so wherever you are, in whatever city, state, country, go out and patriate a small business, right? These are entrepreneurs in their own right. Whether they built the business or the shop from the ground up, or they're franchising, they're still entrepreneurs. And that's the heartbeat of any great economy, is that there are people out there building businesses and providing services. So if there's one thing that I can say for anyone to take away from any of this, is please go patriate a small business.
I'm with you there. It's I think it's absolutely vital that we give both the small business owners and the communities that support them just more and more resources. And that's one of the reasons I reached out to you, because I think that Spare is a really great opportunity to do that. And the idea of these lines outside the check cashing store is just, it hurts my heart, because you're just spending so much money to get money that's already yours.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another big problem that we have, I think, in this country, if not the biggest. It's financial illiteracy.
Mhm.
I had the opportunity a few times, actually 3 times now, to speak at a local high school to talk about insurance and financial products. And I got to tell you, Deontra, out of maybe 100 kids or so, not one kid knew what a credit rating was. Not one.
Yeah.
What chance do you have?
Yeah.
What if you don't know what a credit rating is? You're starting off like, it's like starting off a race with your feet tied together. You have no chance. Really, really concerning.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can't figure out, if no one's told you how a credit rating impacts you today in your financial services, parents out there, please make sure your kids, at the very least, have some kind of baseline understanding of what our economy is built on, right? So if you're really truly trying to solve problems for the future, it's really truly about understanding the state of things as they are today. Um, and it's really great because there are technologies out there that are helping solve this and lower that barrier of entry when it comes to knowledge around financial services. But ultimately, it comes back to the family. The family needs to ensure that they're properly educating the children. At the end of the day, the educational system may not be doing it, but you know what? We've got the internet now,
Yeah.
and technology is a great equalizer. So it comes down to, there's no excuse. At the end of the day, we've all got to do a much better job at making sure we're educating ourselves and the younger generations.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I definitely love the concept of personal agency and responsibility, because in the days of YouTube, you can just get so much knowledge, immense amount of
Yeah,
knowledge. Even if you can't read, you can still
right.
watch something on YouTube and learn.
Yeah,
Super, super powerful. So, Deontra, before I let you go, I definitely need to get into some rapid fire, because there's a couple really important questions I want to ask. Again, we're talking to Deontra Hughes, gotspare.com. Check it out. Code word after hours. And Deontra, are you ready? You strapped in? You ready to rock?
let's get it.
All right, rock and roll. Deontra, what is one business related item that costs less than $50 that everybody should have?
Oh, less than $50 that everyone should have. God, that's so good. Proper headphones.
Got it.
Make sure your hands are free so you can multitask.
It's a good one. What is a must read book?
Ooh, let's see. So for someone who's starting the path, I would go with Rework. That's a book by the creators over at Basecamp, Seth Godin. Yeah, start there.
Yeah, I love me some Seth Godin. That's great. What is a must have subscription in your life right now?
Oh, must have subscription. Depending on the industry that you're in, um, anything financial, I get newsletters all day.
Other than Spare, what is one app that you just have to have on your phone?
Oh, that's a good one. um, it was Postmates for a bit. But then I started, being more cognizant about what I've been eating and things that of that nature. So I'm cooking more now.
Okay, dig it. If you had 10 seconds with yourself 10 years ago, what would you say?
Ah, God, community matters.
Deontra
That's it.
said it.
Community matters.
And I agree with it. DeAndre Hughes, thank you so much, brother.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you so much for watching. I'm glad you enjoyed this episode. I've got several other episodes right here for you. Smash one of these videos to make sure that you don't miss out on the tips, tools, and tactics of industry experts. Let's take that side hustle full time. Smash one of these links.